Welcome to Drinks Coach. How was Christmas lunch? How was Christmas? It was just my wife and I together with all the lockdown and all the caveats in place. Watched lots of good films, ate lots of good food, still hacking away at our turkey crown. Drank some lovely wines, one of which on Christmas Day was one of these. Beaujolais. Welcome to the world of Beaujolais. Just to claim my hand, I was very, very privileged and very honoured to be made a Beaujolais ambassador this year. I actually managed to get out to France in the boiling hot early September in Beaujolais and got back with 4 hours to spare before lockdown started. So lots of fresh, vivid memories of the beautiful place that is Beaujolais. And I wanted to tell you a bit more about it because, frankly, Beaujolais is the most underrated fine wine region in France, and by rote, therefore, one of the most underrated fine wine regions in the world. There are people in this country still going, "Oh, Beaujolais, you drink Beaujolais? When they drinking that in the 70s?" Well, there are people, very serious wine collectors, exactly half around the world in Australia going, "Beaujolais, that's where the future is, mate." Yeah, they love Beaujolais down there because they're cultured wine collectors. And also, they can't make it. It's one of the few styles of wine which countries that warm simply don't have a shoe-in on. You know, they just can't grow Gamay like you taste. But Gamay is a great variety, by the way, of Beaujolais. So let's look up here. We've got Vinesack, all lowercase. Drinks Coach UK, all lowercase. Tell me anything you like about the shows before Christmas. Hopefully you like them. Let me know if you like the whiskey ones and the brandy ones and the blah 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 and the Calvados ones, whether you'd like to see more of those. Let me know if you saw the sake show, because hopefully the sake show was a bit enlightening to some of you. I'd like to know what people's response is from that. But without further ado, you are watching the Drinks Coach UK on YouTube with moi, Joe Wadsack. Click the bell if this is the first time you've seen it in the subscribe button, and then you'll get to see more of these as we roll inexorably closer to episode 100, nearly a year on from when we started. What can I say? My wife and I are thinking of trying to do something special. Not sure what it's going to be yet. Back to the subject. Okay, Beaujolais. So Beaujolais, what is it? Beaujolais is a wine. It's a region that's famous for making wine and has been making brilliant wine for many, many, many years. Centuries, in fact. Forgive me. It was said that Beaujolais, Napoleon Bonaparte, if he wasn't drinking Romanée Conti, which is the most expensive red wine in the world, costs over £10,000 a bottle. Ouch. If that wasn't available to him, he liked nothing more than to drink Chênes, which is one of the most northerly of the small premium regions of Beaujolais, with some roast chicken. That was one of his favourite dishes. So, where do we start? What are we talking about? Well, I better tell you where Beaujolais is, first of all. So, we need a map, French map. How's that? Okay, so that's down here. If you can see that, it says Spain. It's all blurred. Spain. There we go. Up here, that's Paris, that cross. If you come down, you're in Champagne. If you go further down, you get to the top of that line. That line is Burgundy. And then you get to the circle, and the circle is Beaujolais. And below that, it's the Rhone. Along to the right-hand side here, that's Bordeaux, and that's the Loire. Okay, so just giving you some context. But the area we're talking about is there. Okay, just south, added to the southern tip of Burgundy. Now, a lot of people think of it as a part of Burgundy. Beaujolais is always put in the Burgundy section of a wine atlas. Why? Well, administratively, it's always been a part of Beaujolais for a very, very long time. I think going back to the 6th century even. But actually, in terms of the wines it makes and stuff, it makes wines, I think, which are much closer to the wines of the northern Rhone than southern Burgundy. But there are exceptions. There's, in fact, overlap, which we'll go on to in a sec, because we're going to start off with this. This is a white wine. Beaujolais Village Blanc from Yohan, Lardy, 2018. White wine from Beaujolais. Who knew? Yes, well, actually, I've been drinking it for a long time. There was a time when Beaujolais was so unfashionable, they just called it Bourgogne Blanc, because a lot of it was actually sourced from inside the area of Burgundy. So it could be called Bourgogne or Macon, or even Saint-Véran in cases. But it's now starting to gain momentum, I'm pleased to say. And Beaujolais Blanc is a byword for uncomplicated, extremely well made, bright, sparkling, not sparkling in the fizzy sense, but just beautifully sort of like bright fruited wines with very, very nice textures and extremely good with food. I mean, it's kind of a reach for no-brainer unoaked Chardonnay for if you went to a 3-star Michelin restaurant where the food is very, very complicated. So it's nice to have a very fine, uncomplicated wine. And Beaujolais Blanc is one of those. In fact, some Beaujolais Blanc kind of reaches for a more complex style, more of a classic Burgundy style. But let's have a look at this. Let's have a shifty at this lovely example. Okay, so Yohan Lardy, famous for making some reds as well. He made wine at a biodynamic estate in Chile for many years. And when he came back from Chile, he decided he wanted and felt very much about looking after the planet and looking after the climate. And there's a lot of people that believe very much in those kind of idylls in Beaujolais. And actually doesn't use any mechanical equipment in his vineyards at all. In fact, he does all the décavaillonnage, all of the ripping up of all the weeds and bad rocks and stuff by hand. So he works tirelessly by hand. I don't even know if he's got a horse, but these vineyards can sometimes be pretty steep as well. So it's very, very hard work. But the proof is in the eating. Let's have a look at this. This is brought in by a company called Bibendum into the UK, one of our finest restaurant wine importers and indeed distributors to other people. It's 2018, so we're now already looking at a wine that's 2 years old. Beautiful yellow fruits like nectarine, yellow peach, apricot. Really deliciously ripe. When I smell this, it makes me literally salivate. It makes me drool. It's mouth-watering fruit salad on the nose. For those people that want something a little simpler as a comparison, you know the fruit salad sweets? Yeah, those. Okay, so... Oh God, they're so delicious. I could drink a bucket of that, which I think's the point. So, that's the map. That's the bit Beaujolais, a little bit just south. Obviously, Burgundy's kind of made small and Beaujolais's made big there, because I'm trying to prove a point. But that bit is this bit. This is the top half of Beaujolais. Beaujolais kind of, if I stand back, goes down to my pants. It's kind of, at the top here, you've got Macon and Burgundy itself. In fact, if you go down here, off to the right, Moulin-à-Vent is in fact in two different departments. In Saône-et-Loire, which is in the Loire, Saône-et-Loire, which is in the Burgundy, and also Rhône-Alpes, which goes right out to the Alps, heading that way. What's that? East. Okay, so down here you've got an area which is famous for making Beaujolais Village. They're very, very good soils, but not as sexy as the soils that we can talk about in this area. I feel like a weatherman. But down here, you've got Beaujolais Village and regular Beaujolais at the bottom. Down this side, you have the Saône River, which kind of follows the sort of like the edge of the map, which is the bottom of the valley. And here you've got this kind of pleated range of hills called the North-South Rift, which I should tell you a little bit more about now, because the next wine is called Rift 69. Okay, so I'm not sure if 69 in this case is some kind of French joke, but the guy's clearly hilarious because he's got a surfboard and he's standing in a vineyard. I think that must be some kind of reference to the fact that that whole area was sea for a very long time, and where the African tectonic plate moved up to push into the European one, it created a pleat, the North-South Rift, which is the rift which is the range of hills which Beaujolais is in. At its highest, and we're going back 350 million years here, at its highest, those mountains were 20 to 25 kilometres, yes, kilometres tall. How tall's Mount Everest? 9.2? So double the height of Mount Everest. Can you believe it? That's amazing. And as the pressure then moved back and the plates all settled and everything, that rift carried on through the Caucasus and through the Himalayas and everything else. It created all of those mountain ranges. But the mountain ranges then, when Beaujolais was formed, were way taller than they are now. And through wind erosion and recession of the tectonic plates, they're a mere 1,000 metres tall, 500-600 metres tall at the height. But what's that, about 1,700 feet at the highest? But a very beautiful, beautiful region nonetheless. And the hills are really important, especially all the rocks that have been pushed up by this process of compression, which caused the region in the first place. So, Rift 69, made by vigneron Jean Loron, which is a really wonderful producer, producing a lot of very, very exciting wines. Some wines they really go à la limite and really push the boat out, trying to do things a little bit differently. Sorry. So let's have a little quick go at this fella. This is a Beaujolais Village, appellation Beaujolais Village. There we go. Which would imply that most of the fruit would either come from the areas just around the proper crus, like Beaujolais Lantigny and others, which are very good, or it's from this further south, where the grapes are riper. Les Pierres Dorées, which is a big chunk of vineyard just off the bottom of this map, is where a lot of the really good Beaujolais Village comes from, red and white. Nice colour. This is from the 2019 vintage. This is current release. Here we go. Oh, yes. Just remembered smelling it. Look at the label. It says, sans sulfite ajouté. It means made without added sulphur. So this wine is completely natural in the vineyard, or in the winery, in the vineyard as well. They wouldn't have sprayed it in the vineyard. So that allows the wine to really express of itself. It's not inoculated with the yeasts either, so it's using wild yeast in the vineyard. So you get lots and lots of different yeasts doing their job, unabashed by the sulphur, which kills most of these off. You end up with a wine that smells of a whole load of things. It smells like a background hubbub, a conversation in the background, a really cool bar. There's some excitement going on. You can hear lots of different things. There's different fruits, roasted fruit smells. There's some fresh fruit smells. And the fruit is super, super, super clean. It's velvety plush. There's a nice swinging tannin at the back, which just pulls the wine together. So even at this level, and we're just one up from Beaujolais Basic, which, for want of a better word, Beaujolais AOC, which can be very good too, don't get me wrong. But we're not into the fancy pants world of Beaujolais Cru, of which there are 10 very famous regions in Beaujolais. This wine is already a wine that you could take to any fine restaurant in the world and enjoy very much with almost any kind of cuisine you wanted. It would go just as well with Chinese tea-smoked duck as it would with duck à la presse at the Tour d'Argent in Paris. It's a wine that really does feel like already is gastronomic enough to handle all sorts of complex flavours from all sorts of very sophisticated food. Delicious wine, Rift 69 or Rift 69 from Jean Loron. Right, bring us on to this. Bring us on to this map, really, because this map shows you the 10 crus from top to bottom of Beaujolais. And at the bottom here, we've got Bruyeres, which is the first one we're going to start with. Bruyeres is a donut-shaped one, and it is giant. It's basically that whole centre bit, but where it's all blue, that's Côte de Bruyeres, which is its own appellation, which is in the centre, which means the slopes of Bruyeres, where some very long-aged, very fine wines come from. Shout out to Château Tivin, from a Swiss couple who make the most extraordinary wines, and I saw a lot of people on social media over Christmas raving about their wines. Les Sept Vignes from Château Tivin was in fact the very red wine I drank with my roast turkey this Christmas. Beautiful wines. Okay, so this donutty one here. ¿Qué pasa? ¿Qué pasa nada? Something. Let's try this. I'm just going to get a bigger glass because I think this wine deserves a bit more air. Louis Tête. This is a producer you will be familiar with if you've eaten at any restaurants in London at all, because it's virtually everywhere. Louis Tête is a part of a company called Agami. Agami is a negociant which buys wine in from all sorts of places and produces wines of exceptional value, I think. These make really good wines. They're not tip of the toppity top, but instead of having to charge what is now low 50s or high £40 for a good Flurry in a restaurant in London with the overheads that they have to charge, this wine would come in a good £10 cheaper than that. So it's a really good place to cut your teeth on Beaujolais. Okay, so this is Bruyeres Louis Tête. What am I expecting? Same vintage as the last one, I think. 2019, yep. Louis Tête, Louis Head. And this is Bruyeres. So what would we expect from wines that come from down here rather than wines that come up here? Well, this is a big mountain. Montbrouilly. Montbrouilly is a hill, basically, and quite gorgeous one too. But the steep slopes, where most of the minerals, most of the subsoils have been pushed through, is where the wines that really have long aging and lots of minerally flavours and have the complex, delicate, subtle nuances that make Beaujolais Cru really special. But the big Beaujolais, although there's some really fantastic wines there, this is known for almost for bombast. It's the crowd pleaser. It's the big, happy, bouncy Carly Rae Jepsen of a song kind of region. Okay. But it is further south, and because it's further south, and it's not and it's not on the high slopes, it's further in the warmth of the valley. These wines have a much darker, more black fruited smell. It smells of Morello cherries. It's got a deep colour to it, dark Morello cherry, black raspberries, plum, damson. You know what? Considering that's almost the cheapest wine here, it's not half bad. That's really, really good wine. Absolutely delicious, well presented, affordable for a small restaurant who has a small wine list, who wants a wine like Beaujolais, which is so unbelievably versatile with food, which will come on in due course. Now we're on to, I'm touching these with reverence. These are three beautiful wines. Starting off with the guy that I met who's only just started. I think this is his second vintage. Beautiful label. He had a painting commissioned. Almost it was like a Degas. Gregoire Hoppenot de Fleury. Now, he used to work for a guy called Pierre-Marie Chermet at Domaine de Vissou, which is it was the premium producer in Beaujolais, up here. Up in the top areas around here. He was one of the first people that I really fell in love with as a producer, Pierre-Marie Chermet. There's a small bit of Flurry. Flurry in it of itself, I'll show you where Flurry is. Flurry is this appellation here. I'm just trying to find the boundaries. There we go, like that. Boundaries onto Moulin-Avant, the two that are further north of Saint-Amand and Juliena. But Fleury's a big one. Okay, not quite as big as Brewery, but almost in surface area terms. And there are 12 sub-regions of Fleury. I mean, it's got hills, it's got ground, it's got loamy soils down towards the Moulin-Avant bit where the soils are almost some manganese-rich like Moulin-Avant soils. But you've also got massive lumps of quartz up on the hill in La Madone and places like that. So, in and of itself, saying wine comes from Fleury doesn't really give you an indication of what kind of wine you're going to get. So, this guy, Gregoire, did his apprenticeship and learnt an awful lot from Pierre-Marie, who's a guru of Gamay. Le Guru de Gamay will be his name from henceforth. So, we have Gregoire Hoppenot's Fleury 2009. This is called Origine, this wine. He has two other wines which are particular vineyards or blends of vineyards. Origine is two vineyards which he's turning over to organic production. One is down towards the slopes towards Moulin-Avant, and one is facing into Fleury down the side of the slopes where all the mineral and quartz are. And I don't know how many years before it becomes organic. It doesn't say organic on this label yet, so it's probably next year. It takes 3 to 5 years depending on the company you get to accredit it. But boy, do I like his wines. This guy out of nowhere, I know in Parker's Wine Buyer's Guide, Robert Parker, a very respected wine buyer's guide, some guy just happenstanced onto this wine while looking at some very fine wines in the area and immediately gave it 93 points for his first ever vintage, which must have cheered him up no end. Gregoire, if you're watching this, merci pour votre filet de bœuf. Il était extraordinaire, merci. He put this trestle table out for us all to sit around with him and his friends. Mathieu from Domaine des Marans, which is another extraordinarily good producer of Fleury, amongst other friends. And we sat out in the sun until the sun went down, eating slices of fillet of beef with some salad and some cheese. And it was just French paradise. Paradise, what can I say? And Emily and I got absolutely sozzled, did we not, Mrs. Harmon? Okay, so. Oh, so pretty. Okay, a little paler in colour. I think one of these vineyards is actually very young. I think it was only 5 or 6 years planted. The other vineyard, much older. And in fact, because of a lack of husbandry and a lack of people to do it, and people being slightly less anal in this region because wines don't get 60, 70 pounds a bottle, a lot of vineyards in Beaujolais are between 50 and 90 years old. Very, very old vines, which means very low yields, which means very high quality. but it's not ideal. You want a bit of a balance between yield and quality, and you'll find that the modern producers are starting to get that back into a rotation where the vines have an average age of, let's say, 35 or 40 years old, not 65 years old, which is too old. But in the meantime, we can benefit from that because the wines produced are very concentrated and very exciting. So, Gregoire, 2019, definitely better than your 18, which was already delicious, I have to say. Perfumed, so flirry. There's almost on the back palate a flavour of waxy white flowers like lilies and magnolia. There's this, like somebody's just spread perfectly made wild strawberry jam across your tongue. It's just a terrific wine, absolutely terrific, and frivolous and joyful and delicious with, I think, more power than it kind of lets on. It's only 12.5% alcohol, which is the reason why I like this wine so much, because some of them are a little bit riper than that. If you go to Fleury Poncier from Pierre-Marie Chermet, which is further down from where his vineyards are, right down the hill, they can be 13.5%, 14% sometimes. But absolutely fantastic. A classic example of Fleury. We're at the sort of top end of Beaujolais, and we're part of top end of price. Well, not really. I think the Wine Society is selling some of his wine at the moment, and you're looking at mid 17, 18 pounds, which the Wine Society is brilliant. If it was anybody else, it would be 25 pounds probably. Fantastic wines. So look out. You heard from me first. Gregoire, Hoppenot. Can you read that? I hope so. Well, this wine is quite stunning. Fleury, Origine, Gregoire, Hoppenot. Fantastic. Okay, so now we're going to drive from here. I can't do it backwards. Sorry about this. We're going to go here. And we're going to go up to this one here. To Chênas. This is from Domaine Matre. Is it Sylvie and Cécile Matre, if I remember? I can't remember. This cuvée is called Cuvée Feu de Bois, which means this wine has been aged in barrels for 8 months in old inert wood. They really think that really brings out the terroir, the mineral characters, and brings in and harmonises the fruit flavours with all those other extraordinary little nuances that really great Beaujolais has. This is 2018, it's a year older. Very, very warm year, very ripe year. So Domaine Matre, Chênas, Cuvée Feu de Bois. That's what we're looking at right now. Let's have a gawk at this. Whenever I read about Chênas, people say Chênas is the rarest of Beaujolais. It's the smallest. Okay, it's the smallest cru. So flipping what? Okay, it's small. It doesn't make it rare. Okay, it wouldn't be rare if they were no good. But love a bit of Chênas. Okay, look on the vineyards. You got Chênas up here, just across. You got Juliana. You got Saint-Amour there. But we're high up here. Not quite as high up as here. That's the tallest bit of Beaujolais. That's Cherouble. Vineyards are all between 250 and nearly 500 metres. Up here, you're nearly that high. You're that high, but you're really high, tip-top, on top of a hill, basically. What can we say about this wine? Let's just do a little recap while I'm talking about this. Beautiful, spangly, gorgeous, joyful, easy-drinking white wines. Some of them very, very pristine, very fine. I prefer to drink Beaujolais Blanc to a basic Chablis every time. And the prices are half the price. We've got beautiful Beaujolais Villard from a good producer, but this was a natural wine with no added sulphur, no inoculated yeasts. We've gone for a commercial, restaurant-focused, entry-level Bruyeres, which still does what Bruyeres tastes like. It still tastes like Bruyeres. Then we've gone on to this beautiful, fragrant, joyful, unbelievably delicious, could drink it in a pint glass Flurry from Gregoire Hoppenot. And now we're on to Domaine Matre. What have we got up here? Right, we're up on the top of the mountain. There is big lumps of pink and orange striated schistous granite. There are the odd lump of bluestone. Not much here. Tiny little fragments here and there. But also you've got decomposed granite. This stuff they call graisse or roche graisse, which is the perfect substrate for producing fruity wines. I've read that like a dozen times. I don't really know what it means. Maybe a winemaker out there or a wine grower can tell me. But they say that vines planted in this kind of soil, decomposed granite, produce very, very fruity wines every time. So I'm expecting fruit, baby. And so it is. Plenty of fruit. Remembering this wine spent 8 months in a barrel. Still very young. 2018. It's got guts. This is the essence of Beaujolais for me. The essence of Beaujolais is Juliana, Chirouble, Chênas, where the fruit is overtaken by all of this turbulent, stony, mineral energy in the drink. It almost tastes like it's been made in a volcano. Volcanic wines, like wines made near Vesuvius, have this energy, like somebody's just touched the elements on a battery on your tongue. It's got a vibrancy, electricity to them. This wine has all of that. I think we're looking at realistically about £20 for a wine like this. Still tight. Good for another 2 or 3 years. Amazing fruit. Really crunchy, almost cassis blackcurrant to it. Yeah, black currants, a little bit of red currant. Very interesting wine. Very tight. That wine needs a rib of beef. Now, a lot of people tell me, why do you drink Beaujolais with beef? Beef is it's a big animal, but the meat's delicate, right? I love Beaujolais more even than a 20 or 30 pound Burgundy with beef. It's just the most fantastic thing with rare beef, and that's what this needs. As Gregoire showed us when we drank a seared fillet, just a blue fillet with his wines. So we're now going to come on to this. This is a Vieille Vigne 2018 Domaine des Chères Moulin à Vent. Now, just to place it again. Moulin à Vent is this bit. Juliana is this bit. And this is where Domaine des Chères is. It's in this area. That's where the chateau is, or their winemaking facilities. But Moulin à Vent straddles 2 different departements. The Department of Burgundy and the Department of Rhône. And in the middle of one of the vineyards at the bottom is a Moulin à Vent, which is a windmill, which stopped working, ceased to work in 1850, and by 1930 was given a grade listing, a grade 1 listed building, because it's the very windmill that the region Moulin à Vent is famous for. And if you ask people certainly people who read books that were written in the 60s, 70s and 80s, I'm not so convinced myself, but they're also extraordinarily good producers there. If you ask them what the finest cru in Beaujolais is, Moulin à Vent is most often touted. Now, I think that's the reason there's 2 reasons for that. Number 1, because it's in the department of Burgundy, Burgundy producers are making the wines. And not making the wines like a traditional Beaujolais producer, using whole clusters to make fruity, mineralic wines, but actually pressing the grapes out, putting them into barrels, and making wines that are destined to age for 10 to 20 years. And they are very different. And I think because the owners tend to make the wine slightly different, that's one of the reasons why Moulin à Vent seem to be age-worthy, because the soils are no more exciting than they are anywhere else. The soils of Juliana, for me, are much more exciting and make much more individual wines than the wines of Moulin à Vent. However, Moulin à Vent does have a lot of decomposed grass. In fact, one of the most famous walled vineyards is called Domaine des Roches-Graisses. Also, there are skeins of manganese. Now, manganese isn't a metal or a mineral that you see in vineyards very often, but is associated with wines that age for a very long time. And I was once given a glass of Moulin à Vent, and I was asked to say what I thought the wine was, and I said I think it was a 70s Burgundy. I thought Gevrey Chambertin 78, and it was a 64 Moulin à Vent. So if anybody says that Beaujolais can't age as long as Burgundy, it's just that they haven't tried any old examples to disprove that theory. Vieille Vigne. Then you can see underneath it says Julien, Domaine Juliana, which is where obviously above their lintel in their winery, Domaine des Chères. But you can see Vieille Vigne, which is old vine. If it's old vine in Beaujolais, it's fucking old vine. We're talking about 80 or 90 years old probably. Domaine des Chères, Moulin à Vent, and Arnaud Brouillet is the producer here. You can buy this from a place called Vinalis, which is actually a French retailer who will ship to the UK at an extraordinary price of about £17. I think if this was sold by a private merchant in this country, you'd probably be paying about 26, I would say, 26, £27. But it's quite expensive. But not compared to the other fine wines of the world. Hey, so let's have a look at this. Beautiful colour. There's a vibrancy to the colour, a lusciousness to the colour, although it's not quite as dark. So, down here, it gets that much more temperature of sun. It seems to get more extraction in the skin. But up here, we've got vividness and vitality. It looks like Burgundy, actually. I was kind of hoping it wasn't the best wine here, because I wanted to say that the other crus are all just as good as Moulin Levant. But this smells flipping amazing, actually. Okay. Oh, yeah. It's good wine. This has tightness and intensity, and it tastes more backward than the other wines. It's still very primary. This wine is 2018. It actually tastes younger than the 2019 Brie. I can taste allspice, nutmeg, clove. God, that's Christmassy. Maybe that was the one I should have had with my roast turkey. But the Tevan did very well. Thank you very much. That's half an hour. I don't think I can do any longer than that. Beaujolais. Drink Beaujolais. You're an idiot if you don't drink Beaujolais. If you're drinking Burgundy at 30 quid and not Beaujolais at £17, you're a double idiot. See you next time.